Welcome to Module 1 of the Healthdrop cGMP training program. In this module, we're going to explore what cGMP means, why it matters for our company and customers, the specific rules that apply to us here at Healthdrop, and what to expect when the FDA comes to inspect our facility. By the end of these 15 minutes, you'll have a solid understanding of the regulatory foundation that keeps our products safe and keeps our business running smoothly. Let's start with the basics. cGMP stands for Current Good Manufacturing Practice. But what does that really mean? Let me break it down. The C stands for current, and that's important. It means the practices, standards, and methods we use have to be up to date right now, not from 5 or 10 years ago. As science advances and we learn better ways to make safe products, our practices have to keep up. Good manufacturing practice, or GMP, is the set of rules and processes we follow to ensure that every product we make meets safety, quality, and purity standards. And we apply these practices to everything we do, from the moment a raw material arrives at our door to the moment a finished product leaves our warehouse. Now, let's talk about where cGMP comes from. Back in 1906, the FDA was created to regulate food and drugs. Then, in 1962, after some serious safety problems with medications, the FDA strengthened its requirements. In 2007, dietary supplement cGMP regulations became law. And more recently, the Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, tightened rules for food manufacturers. What all of this means is that the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, has set standards that we must follow. These aren't just suggestions, they're federal regulations, and failure to follow them can lead to serious consequences for our company and for the people who use our products. Let's move into the second section, where we'll explore why cGMP really matters, not just for the FDA, but for our customers, our business, and everyone who works here. Why does cGMP matter? Simple: consumer safety. Every product we make at Healthdrop goes into people's bodies. Some of our customers are healthy adults taking a vitamin to boost their wellness. But some are children, elderly people, pregnant women, or people with serious medical conditions. We have a responsibility to make sure every single product is safe, clean, and exactly what the label says it is. When we cut corners on cGMP, we risk putting harmful contaminants or incorrect ingredients into our products. That can make people sick. That can damage their health. And that's unacceptable. But there are also serious business and legal consequences. The FDA has tools to enforce cGMP compliance, and they don't hesitate to use them. If an inspector finds violations during a facility inspection, they might issue a Form 483, which is a documented list of observations and problems. If violations are serious or ongoing, the FDA can send a warning letter, which is public. Your customers and competitors see it. It can tank our reputation and sales. If the violations are severe enough, the FDA can go to court and get a court order forcing us to stop production, recall products that are already out in the marketplace, or even pursue criminal charges against company leaders. We've all seen the news stories about contaminated supplements or food products that had to be pulled off shelves. That's expensive, embarrassing, and dangerous. Let me give you some real-world examples, not from Healthdrop, but from other companies, so you can see what actually happens when cGMP isn't followed. In 2019, a major supplement manufacturer was found to have contaminated batches of vitamin D with harmful bacteria. Thousands of bottles had to be recalled. The company faced a warning letter, lost millions in sales, and customers lost trust. The employees who worked there felt ashamed of the products their hard work produced. Here's another example. A beverage company failed to maintain proper sanitation in their bottling line. A mold contamination made its way into several production batches. While the contamination was caught before the product was widely distributed, the company still had to shut down that line for deep cleaning, conduct customer notifications, and pay for testing and investigation. The company's reputation took a hit, and they lost market share to competitors. And one more, a supplement facility didn't properly train workers on how to handle raw materials or maintain equipment calibration. As a result, A batch of a popular supplement contained far too much of an active ingredient, so much that it could have caused serious adverse effects in consumers. The FDA caught it during a routine inspection, issued a warning letter, and the company had to implement a complete overhaul of their training and quality systems. It took them 2 years to rebuild trust. These aren't worst-case scenarios. These are everyday, cautionary tales in our industry. And they're all 100% preventable if we follow cGMP. You might be thinking, okay, I get it. cGMP keeps people safe and keeps us out of legal trouble. But why should I care personally? Here's the real answer. cGMP compliance is good business. When we follow cGMP, retailers trust us, customers trust us. Our products stay on shelves, we grow, we keep our jobs, and Healthdrop thrives. When we don't follow cGMP, the opposite happens. Retailers pull our products, customers go to competitors. We lose money. We might have to lay people off. Facilities might even shut down. Think of it this way. cGMP is not a burden we're forced to carry. It's the foundation of everything we do. It's what makes Healthdrop a company people want to buy from and a place people want to work. When you follow cGMP in your role, you're not just following regulations. You're protecting the health of millions of people and protecting your own job and livelihood. That's powerful. That's important. Now let's get into the specific rules that apply to us here at Healthdrop. Because here's the thing. Healthdrop makes both dietary supplements and food and beverage products. That means we have to follow multiple sets of FDA regulations. For our dietary supplement products, we follow 21 CFR Part 111. That's Title 21 of the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 111. This regulation is entirely focused on how supplement manufacturers must operate. Part 111 is organized into 5 main sections, which we call subparts. Subpart A gives us the general overview and definitions. Subpart B covers organization and personnel. Things like who's qualified to do what jobs, what training people need, and how we document everything. We'll dive deep into Subpart B in Module 2. Subpart C is all about facilities and equipment. That's your production floor, your storage areas, your testing labs, your bathrooms, your break rooms, everything physical that's involved in making supplements. We talk about cleanliness, maintenance, equipment validation, and pest control. Subpart D covers operations, the actual day-to-day processes of receiving ingredients, storing them, making products, testing, labeling, and shipping. Subpart E is about defect action levels, how much contamination or mislabeling is acceptable before we have to take action like a recall. If you work with supplements here at Healthdrop, Part 111 is your guide. For our food and beverage products, whether that's a sports drink, an energy bar, or a functional food, we follow 21 CFR Part 117. Part 117 is more comprehensive than Part 111 because food manufacturing is more complex. It has more detailed requirements around hazard analysis, water safety, chemical controls, allergen management, and recall procedures. Part 117 has similar sections to Part 111. Preliminary operations covers the setup and planning. Inspection and sanitation digs deep into cleaning and preventing contamination. Equipment section ensures all machines are suitable for food production and properly maintained. Processes and controls is the heart of food safety. It's where we document how we make products, what temperatures we use, what testing we do, and how we prevent biological, chemical, and physical hazards. And like Part 111, Part 117 has defect levels that tell us when and how we have to issue a recall. If you work with food or beverage products here at Healthdrop, Part 117 is your regulatory guide. Here's where it gets more advanced. The Food Safety Modernization Act, or FSMA, was passed in 2011, and it added even more requirements on top of Part 117. FSMA requires us to think ahead, to identify and prevent food safety hazards before they happen, not just react when something goes wrong. FSMA introduced a system called HACCP, hazard analysis, and critical control points. HACCP is a scientific, step-by-step approach to food safety. Here's how it works. First, you identify all the hazards that could contaminate your food. Maybe it's bacteria from raw ingredients. Maybe it's metal from a broken piece of equipment. Maybe it's the wrong ingredient accidentally used. Second, you identify critical control points, or CCPs, where you can monitor and control those hazards. For a beverage, a CCP might be the heat treatment step. For a supplement with nuts, a CCP might be the allergen checking step. Third, you set limits. If we're heating our beverage to kill pathogens, we need to heat it to at least 160 degrees for a certain amount of time. Fourth, you monitor these critical points constantly: temperature probes, pH meters, visual inspections. Fifth, you have corrective actions ready. If our beverage isn't reaching the right temperature, we stop production and fix it before anything goes out the door. HACCP is not just theory for us at Healthdrop. It's how we actually run our food and beverage operations. You might participate in it directly or indirectly. Understanding it helps you see why certain steps exist and why we can't skip them. At Healthdrop, we make 2 types of products, so we follow 2 sets of rules. But here's the good news: they're not contradictory. They're actually built on the same foundation. Both Part 111 and Part 117 require us to hire qualified people, train them thoroughly, maintain our facilities and equipment, document what we do, test our products, and handle problems quickly and transparently. The overlap is intentional. The FDA designed these regulations so that companies like ours, that make multiple types of products, can build one comprehensive quality culture that applies to everything we do. When you wash your hands, when you follow a procedure, when you report a problem, when you fill out a form, you're following the same fundamental principles, whether you're working with supplements or food. That makes things clearer and safer for everyone. Now let's talk about something that makes people nervous: FDA inspections. Let's demystify this and talk about what actually happens when an inspector comes through our doors. Here's what actually happens. The FDA doesn't usually call ahead and say, "We're coming in 3 weeks." Sometimes they do, but usually an FDA investigator just shows up at our facility. They have credentials and a badge. Our security or reception team will notify management. We are legally required to cooperate with the inspection. We can't turn them away. The inspection starts with an opening meeting between the FDA inspector and our facility's management. The inspector explains what they're going to look at and roughly how long the inspection will take. Usually a few hours to a full day, depending on our facility size and product complexity. Then, the inspector walks through our production areas. They're looking at equipment condition, sanitation, how people are dressed and behaving, how materials are stored and labeled, how we're controlling temperature and humidity, whether there's pest activity. Everything. A manager or quality person walks with them and answers questions. The inspector might take photos, swabs for testing, or samples of products or ingredients. Next, the inspector reviews documentation. They might look at production records, testing results, training records, complaints about products, recall history, maintenance logs, whatever is relevant. They're looking for consistency between what they see on the floor and what the paperwork says. Finally, there's a closing meeting. The inspector tells our management what they found. If there are no significant issues, the inspection might end there. If there are observations, the inspector may issue a Form 483. The FDA has different enforcement tools, and it's important to understand what they mean. Let's start with a Form 483. A Form 483 is not a violation. It's more like an inspection observation. The inspector noted something they think you should correct, but it might not be serious enough to warrant formal enforcement. For example, an inspector might note that a storage room label was incomplete, or that we didn't have a training record for one employee. Form 483s are common and not the end of the world, but they do mean the FDA noticed something. We have to respond in writing within a set time frame explaining how we're correcting the issue. A warning letter is more serious. A warning letter means the FDA has found violations of the cGMP regulations that are significant enough to warrant official enforcement action. A warning letter is public. It goes on the FDA website, and anyone can see it. Our customers, our competitors, retailers we work with, they all see it. A warning letter usually means we have 15 business days to respond with a detailed action plan. And then the FDA might follow up later to confirm we actually fixed the problem. Getting a warning letter is a big deal. It can hurt our reputation and sales. A court order is the most serious enforcement action. If the FDA cannot resolve the situation through inspection observations or warning letters, they can go to federal court and ask a judge to order us to stop production, recall products that are already sold, or take other actions to protect public health. A court order is legally binding, and if we violate it, we can face criminal charges and substantial fines. This is rare, but it happens when violations are severe or when the FDA believes there's an imminent health threat. What should you do if you see an FDA inspector in our facility? First, don't panic. Inspections are normal and expected. Here's what your role might be depending on your job. If you're a production worker, continue your work unless management tells you to stop. Be professional and courteous if the inspector approaches you. You might be asked a question like, "How did you know which ingredients to add?" Or, "When did you last wash your hands?" Answer honestly and simply. Don't try to guess or over-explain. If you don't know something, say so. The inspector is looking for competence and conscientiousness, not perfection. If you're in quality, management, or you're designated as an escort, you'll walk with the inspector. Your job is to answer questions honestly, point out relevant documentation, and represent our company professionally. Don't interrupt or volunteer information the inspector didn't ask for. Don't be defensive. If the inspector finds something that concerns us, we address it afterward. If you're in administration or quality, you might be gathering documents. Have training records, testing results, maintenance logs, and complaint files organized and ready. During an inspection, speed and accuracy matter. Through it all, our message is consistent. We are committed to safety and quality. We follow cGMP, and we're happy to show the inspector how seriously we take our responsibilities. If an inspector finds an issue, we want to know about it so we can fix it. Let's recap what we've learned in Module 1. First, cGMP stands for Current Good Manufacturing Practice, and it's the set of federal regulations that require us to make safe, clean, and correctly labeled products. These regulations come from the FDA and are based on decades of experience protecting public health. Second, following cGMP is critical for consumer safety, for keeping our business thriving, and for protecting your job and ours. When we cut corners, people can get sick. We face legal and financial consequences, and everyone loses. Third, Healthdrop makes both supplements and food products, so we follow two main regulatory frameworks, Part 111 for supplements and Part 117 for food. These rules overlap and reinforce each other, creating a strong foundation for quality across everything we make. And fourth, FDA inspections are normal, routine, and not something to fear if we're doing our jobs right. Inspectors are professionals looking to ensure compliance, and when they find issues, we address them. Cooperation and transparency are always the right approach. Think of cGMP as a cycle. We make safe, compliant products. That builds customer trust. Customers buy our products. Our business grows. We invest in our people, our facility, and continuous improvement. We make even better products. The cycle continues. cGMP is the heart of that cycle. Without it, the cycle breaks. With it, everyone wins. Consumers stay safe, Healthdrop stays strong, and we all benefit from being part of a company that does the right thing. Before we move on to Module 2, take a moment to reflect on these questions. You don't need to write anything down or share your answers. This is just for you. First, why do you think the FDA requires all these rules and inspections? What problem are they trying to solve? Second, Can you think of a time when you might interact with cGMP in your job here at Healthdrop? Whether that's washing your hands before production, following a labeled procedure, or reporting a concern. And third, how might our customers feel if they knew Healthdrop takes cGMP seriously? What does that trust mean to you? In Module 2, we're going to dive into the people side of cGMP. Who's qualified to do what, how we keep ourselves clean and healthy, and why training is so important. See you there. You've completed Module 1. Great work. You now have a foundational understanding of cGMP, the FDA regulations that apply to Healthdrop, and what to expect if the FDA inspects our facility. In the next module, we'll focus on the people side of the story, the training, health, and personal conduct standards that keep everyone safe.